Hello and
Peace.
welcome to the Go-Pod, everybody.
Hello.
What's up?
Hi, Jarrett.
I really thought someone was about to harmonize with Jason, and it was
Dude,
just
I
him.
was hoping for it.
There's too much of a delay. I always get nervous with this stuff.
Now you can just layer those back on top of each other. It's a nice perfect third.
Yeah, do some auto-tune, remix it,
Yeah.
put in a backbeat.
Someone else is going to have to edit that.
Somebody get a clave up in here.
Ooh.
Ooh, making up words now.
What? Did you not listen to this album?
I've listened to it front and
Okay.
back.
Well, then I hope you would know.
Or I should say
million
front
copies
to back
worldwide.
many times. I've not listened to it backwards. That would be a whole nother experience.
I have a task for myself later this week. Listen to every album I've ever listened to back to front.
Bless you. That would be something.
Okay. I'm good.
You know what? I think maybe I would like The Wall better if I did backwards to front.
That's gonna
Actually,
that's
sure.
gonna
That
bother
would
me for
ruin
a
it.
while.
That would ruin it.
That's gonna bother me for a while.
I
Man.
think there's actually a song in The Wall that if you listen to it backwards, it has like some sort of hidden meaning.
Military propaganda. Yeah.
Is that Another One Bites the Dust, right?
I got no idea, man.
Well, what are we talking about this week?
I'm glad you asked. What are we talking about this week, guys? Jason's mind blown.
Dude, I'm in a haze, so there's nothing to say what I'm going to say today.
Jason, our North Star, is
Dude,
Southwest at the moment.
I've
man.
had the flu all week. I've had like steroids, Tamiflu, random freaking cold remedies. I'm just in a daze. But, you know, it's probably a good thing when going after an album such as Supernatural.
Yeah. So, unlike Southwest Airlines from last winter, we're going to go ahead and get going. And today's episode, you've clicked on it, is Supernatural by Santana. And I got to say, before this album, I was not very familiar with Santana whatsoever. How about y'all?
Oh, I love Santana.
Minus one song.
I knew
Maybe two.
the song that he did was Chad Kroger, and
Oh,
that,
yeah.
I'm not proud of that fact, but that's what it is.
Nah, man, wave that banner high.
No, I've listened to a good bit of Santana. And I knew this was my favorite album of his before we even got into it. So,
Well, that's good. It's
pretty
his highest selling album.
Yeah,
Other
Yeah.
people agreed. That's great.
I
Yeah, this
agree
is-
with the peoples.
I think this, I have to relook, but I'm pretty sure this is the only Santana that's on this list. So
think so.
that's
That sounds right.
says something about this album. So, all right. Well, it's a little background info on this album. Obviously, it's by Santana, led by Carlos Santana. And just to be honest, I would totally go into the band members that are in the band at this time, but there's a lot of them. And this album has a whole lot of guest stars and guest musicians. So if you really want to see who all is playing on this album, I would just recommend going to Wikipedia and looking at all of that. There's way too many to list off right now. But essentially, Santana, led by Carlos Santana, started in the 1960s, like late 60s. They actually were at the very first Woodstock. That's where they got. That's where they hit their stride. I think they had an album out before that, but when they played that concert, that's where they really started to get popular. And so they continue to record I think like an album a year. So I think this is like their 18th album by the time we get here. So it started in 1960s, and they kind of had some success throughout the 70s, 80s, 90s, but it kind of fluctuated. And ultimately with this album, they found a newfound success. And the reason for that being is that essentially once we kind of got into the 90s, they stopped recording, just did touring, because Carlos was like, I don't want to put something out unless it has meaning. And it's like I want to make a masterpiece of an album, but I don't think at this time I can do that either with my label or with my current team. So I'm just going to wait that out. And so eventually he has a meeting with, where did I put with Clive Davis, who originally signed them way back in the day. Clive Davis is at, I'm going to butcher this. Is it Arista or Arista Records? Do we
I
know?
think it's Arista.
I think it's Arista.
Okay.
I think it's
Arista
probably
Records.
Arista.
So has a conversation with Clive and is like, I still have like a lot of stuff in me and I think I can make a masterpiece album. And I'm not just an old act. Like we've been around since the 60s, but I've got something to say in music today. And Clive is like, all right, go for it. And so we see a lot of collaboration with like modern, or almost 30 years ago, modern artists from that day. And this is an album that's way different than earlier like Santana, I would say.
Yeah.
How do y'all think that's a accurate assessment?
Yeah, I think when you see Santana's work, very different musician, but I want to compare a little bit to the way like Corey Wong or Wolfpack, they kind of put out music, is they're pumping out tons of songs that may not be vocally focused. And so all of the albums are kind of, though I have some favorite albums of those types of artists, it's like none of them are like built as like, oh, this is a sick album. But when he gets around to this, he's like, no, I wanted to build kind of a masterpiece album that is focused on some lyrical work and working on things beyond just the instrumentals. So yeah, this is definitely quite different from their earlier works that, though obviously like a lot of them have like vocal parts in it, that's not like the main focus.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's interesting too, because this is recorded. If you listen to the last album, we covered "Baby One More Time" by Britney Spears. This was recorded during the same time period, from 1997 to 99. Actually released like a few months after "Baby One More Time." But I would say, unlike "Baby One More Time," like this isn't necessarily dated to 1999. Like obviously, like you listen to some of the stuff, like you can tell, oh yeah, it's the late 90s. This is definitely like from that era. But I would say a majority of this album, I do not get that feeling. And yeah, I think this is a great album. Jason, or anyone who feels confident enough to say these names and guest stars, feel free to hit us with that track listing.
I think
Yeah, let me
Jason
hit
is the
this.
most tan, so
I was going to say you're wrong, but I actually think you're right, believe it or not.
yeah.
I do want to put this before I even do the track listing. Like, so this was recorded in Berkeley, California, Fantasy Studios. But I found it interesting on Discogs that gives some information. It's listed as an album from Canada, and the genre is listed as rock, blues rock, and classic rock. Yet this is very much Latin rock and a lot of other things. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Before we
and
get
wasn't
into
made
it.
in
But let's-
Canada.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't made in Canada. Now I'm pretty sure. Don't quote me on this. I think there's some Canadian roots with Santana. Obviously, there's Latin roots, but it's kind of all over the place. It's kind of cool. But yeah, let me get to these track lists. So, now I can't do it. Yeah,
Already failed.
Somebody else do
is
it.
the
Man.
way we start. Love of My Life, featuring Dave Matthews and Carter Beaufort. That's one of the singles. Put Your Lights On, featuring Everlast, another one of the singles. Africa Bamba, probably the most well-known on this whole album. Smooth, featuring Rob Thomas, another one of the singles. Do You Like the Way? Do You Like the Way, featuring Lauryn Hill and CeeLo Green. Maria Maria, if you're big on TikTok, that one's been hitting recently. Featured the Product G&B, it's another single. Migra, Corazon Espinada, featuring Mana, it's another one of the singles. Wishing It Was Well, featuring Eagle Eye Cherry. El Faro, Primavera, it's another, I guess, the last single on this album. And then The Calling, featuring one and only Eric Clapton, which is insane. And then we finish it off with a little bit of a hidden track called Day of Celebration. It's hidden on the physical version, but obviously you'll see it on Spotify. So that's the 14 tracks of Supernatural by Santana.
All right, man. 14 songs of goodness. So cool. Why don't we go ahead and dive in to lyrics and themes? Steven, you got anything?
Oh boy. Yeah, it was a challenge interpreting some of these lyrics as they were often in Spanish. So I'm actually
They were.
I'm more just going
You're
on
correct.
going on vibes. But yeah, I mean the vibes of the lyrics were very like it actually sort of changed from song to song. Like there were some R&B sort of influences in some songs that I heard, and I guess that depends on who's like the guest starring vocalist. But I mean, I don't know if anyone else has like had any classes in Spanish or whatever, but if there's any like actual literal like connections with the title of the album, Supernatural, I'd be interested in that. But just as far as like the sound goes, I'd say it's supernatural in that it's like sort of mysterious and spooky at times. Not really spooky, but more mysterious and romantic. But yeah, I had a hard time with the lyrics on this one, I think.
Oh yeah, you're saying you haven't studied Spanish fervently and can't just translate
Or
for us.
not, or at all. I actually, yeah, not for.
That is an
I took
option.
I took French in high school because everyone else was taking Spanish, and I'm, a maverick, so I went with
You're
French.
quirky.
Yeah, I'm quirky.
Emily, you're such a crackhead.
I don't get that reference.
Oh, sorry. Deep cuts.
It's okay. Just laugh along like you do. Just laugh along like you do.
Emily, it's classic. Emily, she's always doing like narcotics and stuff. I get it. We're all on the same page here.
Yeah.
No.
We're all making the same joke here.
Sure.
Oh my gosh. I don't even know how to segue out of that. I was going to say, from the English lyrics that I know, because I know English fairly well, it's interesting to see. There are definitely like love songs and heartbreak songs, but there's also, I feel like it's a little bit like Dangerous by Michael Jackson, that there's a lot of different topics discussed: love, heartache, fear, things that are like injustice in the world, and like unity. You see that especially like The Calling, Migra. I didn't have to roll the R. It's just one R. You're right. But
I'm sure no one would have called you out on that.
I know. But yeah, what do y'all think of that comparison? Because on one hand, it's like there's not like a overall. It's not a concept album of like supernatural, but it is like fairly over the place.
Yeah, I think just the way that musically it hits a lot of genres. Like like it clearly has a like progressive feel of Latin rock throughout, just because of Santana's style. But like African Bamba, you have those different sounds. Smooth has a lot of just like real classic rock kind of sounds going on. There's even some like R&B levels with the Lauryn Hill and CeeLo Green track. Maria Maria has this weird like R&B and Latin vibes. And then like just if you listen to just The Calling with Eric Clapton apart from this album, I wouldn't like immediately say, oh yeah, that makes sense as like essentially the closing song of this album. And so it seems more supernatural in the like the styles than maybe the lyrical focus. Now, like there is some supernatural element of like you're hitting a lot of different stuff. Like Maria Maria, Smooth, and Yaleo like have very little related to each other, like thematically. And so that, I mean, if you want to take supernatural and just the idea of kind of all over the place, you could go that direction. But I think it's a lot more in the feel and the vibes from a lot of these tracks.
Yeah. Yeah. And speaking of that feeling vibe, especially as you're talking about all these like different guest artists and even guest musicians that are going on, I want to throw it out to you, Dan and Jason. Like obviously there's a wide range of genres, guest artists, all this stuff. But like one, we should take a step back. Like who are these featured artists? Like what is special about them?
Dave Matthews Band.
All of them?
Well, okay, so Love of My Life featuring Dave Matthews and Carter Beauford, both Dave Matthews Band.
Carter's the drummer, right?
Yeah, Carter's the drummer. Put Your Lights On featuring Everlast, or also known as Whitey Ford. Smooth featuring Rob Thomas. You've got Lauryn Hill, CeeLo Green, David McRae, Marvin Moore Huff, but known as the Product G&B. Mana, and is that how you pronounce that?
Yeah,
I think so.
Mania.
Mana. And
There's no I.
Eagle Eye Cherry and Eric Clapton. I mean, golly, you've got almost as many, as many guest artists as you do songs.
Yeah, just about.
One of the things that caught me really, really hard on this entire album was for Carlos Santana. This was a comeback album. This was, we haven't produced an album in a while. It's been 2 years at this point, and the last one was a live concert live at the Fillmore. So he's like, well, we gotta do something. And they just brought it in a lot of these songs. I don't know how much I've listened to Eric Clapton that I was like, oh, I know exactly this is Eric Clapton, but being able to listen to The Calling, and I just was absorbed by that song. We'll talk more about this later, but that was like because of the way that it just enveloped my entire being and how much I was surprised. Like I heard the guitar and I was like, who the heck is that? Because it wasn't the same style that we had heard the entire album. I was like, who is that? Oh my gosh, it's Eric Clapton. Okay, that's my favorite song this album, which is so tough because Smooth kicks butt.
Yeah, it does.
And Maria is just so smooth.
Well, and it's so crazy to say. Essentially, there's an album that the point of the album is listening to Santana's guitar to a degree. And then he goes on and pulls in probably one of the only people that matches him, if not is just better than him on guitar for the like closing track of his like. It's some cool humility, but also I think musically it's like, hey, no, Santana's got something else going on to say, hey, no, I can't do this. I need Eric to come on and do this. And you recognize that with some like really great band masters back in the day, especially with like big bands. It's guys that write just perfectly for the people that they have on each of their songs. So I think that's just really neat and shows like Santana's mind around music.
Yeah. And you're already kind of talking about this, but I'll open this up to all of you. But what effect does having a featured artist or a guest artist have on like a song or an album like this? Like, is it something that has the potential to detract from the fact that this is like an artist album? Like, this is my collective piece of work and it has so many featured guest artists, or is that something that like enhances that experience?
I think for this album specifically, it enhances it because it seems like the if there is an overarching message, it's something to do with unity and something where it can appeal to just humans in general. And so in that way, you can just sort of listen to the music, which is like a universal language that everyone can appreciate. And even if the lyrics are not in your language, you can sort of infer some meaning from just the music itself. And there is a lot of that, like apart from just the lyrics. There's so much going on musically.
Yeah. I think this is the first album we've touched that the main artist isn't the vocalist. or isn't
Yeah.
a part of the vocal
The lead
crew.
vocalist.
Yeah, like obviously Beatles isn't like, oh yeah, the Beatles was the vocalist. Like it's
Beatles.
With
more
Johnny
people.
Beetle.
Yeah.
But like yeah, exactly. But when you have something like this, even when you see stuff like recently, like Jacob Collier's new album just came out, and he is a vocalist,
yeah,
like
it
he is
did.
singing, but like you don't listen to Jacob Collier's stuff because of his vocals. He's got great vocals, but
He does.
that's not the reason you're listening. It's because he's putting these songs and these like entire soundscapes together, and then he pulls just the right person onto every single track. Like you look through his most recent album and like the people he's brought on, I see almost like a lot of comparison of like, oh yeah, he's bringing on some of the biggest names right now and puts them specifically on the best track for them. And so Santana did the same thing back in '99, and it sold really well. I don't know if we're going to see Jacob's newest album go off the same way. I doubt it because of just how incredible this one is. But it's some similarities in the way he brings on guest artists.
Yeah. Well, we can speak a little bit to today's market, how saturated it is and how difficult it is to have anything you do stand out for as long as this album did. Like I'm looking through some of the songs that he had, Smooth in particular. First off, Love of My Life, featuring members of the Dave Matthews Band. They're coming off of a pretty big album. Like their career was very good, and still people are diehards and will listen to them, and they have wonderful songs that'll be listened to throughout hopefully the rest of time. But you know, there's an opportunity there for Carlos Santana to say, well, here's people that are already really good at what they do, bring them in. You know, Eric Clapton's the same way. The Product G&B, I think, were really, really strong at that point. Lauryn Hill was coming off of a really, really good career and time with the Fugees, and CeeLo Green was on the up and coming at that point. But Smooth was a different story. And I didn't dive into all of these, but I did dive into Smooth. And that was something that Rob Thomas, he was a writer originally, and Smooth put him on the map. He was given the demo to this song, and they were like, hey, we need the lyrics completely redone. We need help. Like, how do we fix this? And so he rewrote it. It was a completely different song. It was going to be called Room 17. And I don't know what it was going to be about, but it wasn't going to be this. And he totally rewrote the song, gave it the title that it has now, and wrote it for George Michael. He didn't write it for himself. And Carlos Santana was like, okay, well, you're going to sing it. And here is stardom. Here is your place in music history.
Yeah. And of course, he's the lead singer of Matchbox 20, but like they weren't that big. I mean, they were like, it was the 90s. Everyone was big at the same time. But like they were like number one band. They were like a new band who's selling well. I think that's really something that you see in all these guest artists here is like, yes, these are like the popular artist of that day, but neither one of them is like necessarily like outshining one another. Like we were saying, like they all have their place in the songs they're in. And it just hit me as you were talking about it earlier, Dan, but we've got Lauryn Hill on Do You Like the Way? And then Maria Maria is produced by Wyclef Jean. And so the only one we're missing is Prost, and we'd have the whole Fugees here.
I know.
Gotta love some Fugees.
But it's very cool to see. Like Stephen was talking about unity as one of the main themes throughout this whole thing, and it's Santana taking one of the, like, we wouldn't be listening to this album, we wouldn't be talking about it if it wasn't a giant album. And if it didn't do its job, and it did its job of bringing people together by bringing all of these different styles into his world.
For sure.
You know, it wasn't a Dave Matthews Band song with Carlos Santana doing guitar. It was a Santana song with two members of Dave Matthews Band.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And I think it's one of those things where, like, if you haven't listened to this album and you look at the track list and you see who all is on there, you're like, man, there's like, I don't even, 1, 2, 3, 4,
There's
5.
11.
There's 11. Saves counting. There's 11 guest artists, and this doesn't come across as like a mixtape, you know. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
this to me feels like a cohesive unit, a whole album that works together, even though if every song is different. Even though there's still like some kind of guitar solo in there, so Santana's in it, even though he's not the lead singer. There's some unifying aspect of it. The one that comes to mind is Ed Sheeran's, I think it was number 6, collaborations. Like, every song is a collaboration, and it's like that. That is definitely not an album in the same sense that this one is. Like, that one's definitely a mixtape, and he would call it that, and that's why it's number 6. But every song in there is like, oh, this is a good song I've done with this person, let's put it on. And it's not like this is like an album. This is not like Sgt. Pepper, where everything has a reason for being in this order, in the way that it's done.
Mm-hmm.
And like, this album definitely is like, there is heart and soul behind it, and reasoning why artists appear. And yeah, it's a magical ride for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, because I was thinking through like musical nidities, and I couldn't even like lock it down to anything specific. Like, there's just so many cool rhythms, so many cool like ways that he takes his very distinct guitar style and then puts it into a lot of different vibes, and never sounds out of place. It's not like, oh yeah, we just dropped a Santana solo on top of something. Like, you'll see guys on like TikTok, and they're like adding a trumpet solo to songs that don't need a trumpet solo. It's like none of his spots were that. Like, they were all exactly the type of Santana solo that needed to fit into this Santana song. With whatever vibe you have going on. So I think that was the thing. His band leading, I think, was my musical nidity now. Like, I couldn't not think about, if you think about kind of big band leaders of the 20s and the 30s, something that we don't notice as much just because either we lack recordings or is people just replaying the music. The songs were written for the artists that were playing in their bands. Like, he wrote, like, guys would write, Duke Ellington would write specific lines for the trumpet player that was playing in his band when he wrote the song. And so then we listen to it later, and unless you have that recording of that trumpet player, you kind of miss some of like the beauty of why that line worked for him. So luckily with this, we have a recording, and you hear Eric Clapton. Like, I'm trying to imagine all of those parts, but being played by like Jimi Hendrix. And it's like, it would be different. I don't know if it worked the same, or like if they had brought it
to be different.
Yeah. And so he like did such a good job of selecting the right artist for the right spot for the right time of each song on the album. So I think it's just really neat, his band leading style there, which is different from his earlier works, which are very much like, all right, let me just give you some of the sickest guitar shreds and just whole band sounds.
Yeah. I'm taking his masterclass right now. Actually, I showed the boys a clip from one of those episodes before we started recording, and he's got an episode about leading bands, and so I'm really interested to get to that part. And you've also given me an idea for maybe a future post. It'll be out by the time this episode comes out.
Nice.
But about certain instruments that aren't a part of songs, but are for the TikTok or whatever. So if I actually do put it out, we'll know what I'm talking about. And if it doesn't come out, then this was a lie. But yeah, any other musical things or musical nidities that y'all have or comes to mind?
I feel like Santana, they were at such a high level musically that it's hard for like a lay person to detect exactly, which I include myself in that. It's hard to actually articulate what they were doing musically, but you can still appreciate it just as a a non-musician. You can just appreciate the sounds and you can feel the effect of it, but it's I can't decipher exactly the complex things that are occurring in the beat, and especially not the solos. There's so much there that I will never understand.
Yeah. I think it's one of those things that a lot of times you'll talk to like really, really, really great musicians. And like I know some like guitarists will be like, the best guitar player can play the best G chord of anybody. And it's like, well, everyone can play a G chord, but they know how to do it so much better in like every little aspect that then when they play a song, it sounds so effortless that you almost miss the not you don't miss the beauty of it, but like you miss the difficulty because they're so good at their craft. Like you go to a really, really great ballet performance, and sometimes you can be like, oh, that's cool because they just do it so seamlessly that sometimes you almost miss like the difficulty of the stunt, that you miss the ability that is needed to move that smoothly through each section.
Absolutely.
Yeah, one thing he's talked about in his class is like discovering your sound, like as a musician and as an artist. What is your sound? What is your look? What is like, who are, like, you already are who you are, but when you're on stage or when you're performing or you're doing any kind of art, like you're unlocking what you actually are and figuring out like how you play that G chord. Like, yes, anyone can play G chord, but how do you play that G chord? Yeah, anyone can draw a line, but how are you drawing that line, and so on, like that. And I'm just like blown away. Like Steven, like I don't even know what he's doing half the time on guitar, but I enjoy listening to it and I enjoy trying to replicate it. But at the same time, if I never fully learn how to do exactly what Santana's doing, that's fine too. If I'm doing it my own way, because I'm becoming my own like artist, and I'm using my voice to do that. And so I really appreciate him saying that, because like I, if you listen to Soul Sacrifice from like their Woodstock uh, performance, which I encourage everyone to go do, it's insane. Like that was when they started, and he's still insane today. Like they're still making music. Like I think the latest out, like you can go on Spotify, I think he put out an album like 2021, and so that they're still like on the move, still doing stuff. It's fantastic. But yeah, do y'all have any other musical things, or do you want to move on to highlights?
I have one more thing. Well, two more things. One, as the
Sweet.
listener, do know, like, we may say things that we've researched about this stuff. We may have studied music a little bit more, but yeah, we absolutely like don't always know what's happening, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And even you, if you listen through these albums and you don't know what's happening, but it's in your brain, it's, oh, that's nice, then that's awesome.
Yeah.
And it is a great way to just enjoy music and enjoy other people's gifts and talents.
Yeah. Like
And
as
I know,
highbrow as this album may seem,
Yeah.
it's also for the layperson like us, and it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. There were many different parts of my time in the music like program in a music degree that I was like, well, if I can't recreate this, why am I listening to it? Why am I like trying to study it if I can't do it myself? And it's like, that's not the point. Enjoy it, be just washed over by it, and just, I don't know. I thoroughly enjoyed this album and couldn't tell you what the heck he was doing, but it was wonderful.
Well, I think it's one of those
but
things
then-
that I was just going to say, like in music theory classes, I would always have professors be like, play something. And they're like, is that right? I'm like, well, it sounded good to me, so I'm going to say that's right to me. And so like, there's a lot of things in this that even if you don't understand it, it's like, if you like the sound of it, cool. Like that's what we're looking for. So
Yep.
go ahead, Dan.
So I think I want to do a little bit more of this as we move on and see just how well received in its time some of these songs were. So I'm gonna share with y'all the chart performance of Smooth and of Maria Maria.
Ooh.
Smooth topped the charts. Let's see. First, it was Santana's first, and it topped the charts in 1999, which is when the album came out, and it was the top one for 12 weeks consecutively.
Wow.
Beginning October 23rd, 1999. and it stayed in the top 100 for 30 weeks,
That's insane.
Man.
which is wild. Or maybe it was a different one. It stayed in the top 10 for 30 weeks and then in the top 100 for over a year.
I was
Oh,
about to say,
wow.
'cause
That's
30
way
weeks
more
is
epic.
2/3 of a year.
30,
And,
yeah, that's crazy.
That's insane.
Man.
So yeah, I just thought that was really cool. It was a top hit for a long time, and Billboard magazine, when they did their first ranking of like best songs of all time, when they hit 50 years of the Billboard Top 100, they put Smooth as the number 2 overall song of the first 50 years of the Billboard ranking.
That's
Man.
insane.
Crazy.
And then Maria Maria, it was, this one also topped the charts, I do believe. It topped the chart for 10 weeks.
That's insane.
Wow.
Like, these were incredibly, incredibly popular songs for a long time.
Man. So talk about knowing your audience.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man. Cool. Well, highlights from this album. Anything that stands out that you can put into words.
I
got to go listen to more Eric Clapton and more Santana.
Yeah.
I just think it's wild. Like, I'm just not going to shut up about his band leadership, but it's like all of these like guest artists like are not related. Like, there's not a whole lot of like connection of like, okay, so we're going to go with Matchbox 20, CeeLo Green, the Dave Matthews Band. Like, if somebody said, "Hey, you want to listen to an album that has those guys on it?" You're like, "What?
Yeah.
What are you doing?"
2 of the Fugees.
Yeah, 2 of the Fugees, but not the third
And
one.
CeeLo wasn't even famous yet. Like,
Yeah, like CeeLo wasn't, and then and be like, "Oh," and at the end, Eric Clapton comes in, and you're just like, "What is this album?" And
that
Yeah.
makes sense to me.
if you listen to this album without somebody telling you that all of those people are on it, you don't come out and be like, "Oh man, they picked a bunch of weird people to be on this album." Like, it feels right. It feels like the right people to be on the album, and I think that's just incredible to like see that.
Yeah.
Supernatural in itself.
See what you did there.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, let's move into our let's see, how do I say this? Part of it is definitely our favorite, and other parts of this will be maybe what kills friendships and starts wars. Faves
The
and least
second part of
faves.
that's going to be tough for this album.
So also, in
anyways.
case you're interested, we said it last time, our favorites playlist is on Spotify, and you can find that link in our bio on Instagram. So I'm going to start
Am I allowed
with...
to do 2 favorites?
You technically did for Sgt. Pepper, but
Well,
that was
but
a
this,
special case.
okay, this is not like related to. It's just I have a tie.
Okay, that's fair because
Or
I also have
do
a
I
tie.
have to break my own? I could break my own tie though, if you want me to.
I would say
Here's what let's do. Dan and Steven, if you're not tied, y'all say ones, and if either of you say the same one as my other, I'll just not say it.
that's fair.
Okay.
I'll do the same.
We'll do that. I'll hold off.
All right, cool. Dan, do you want to hit us? What's your fave?
I will happily let you know what my favorite is. It was The Calling featuring Eric Clapton. And maybe my taste is just weird, but I was looking through the plays numbers on Spotify, and it is not one of the more played songs, and it kind of makes me like a little mad. Because I love it, and it was so tough to not pick Smooth or Maria Maria, or even I loved Do You Like the Way, another one of the lesser listened songs. But it has to be for me The Calling.
All right. Steven, call it out.
I would say my favorite one is Day of Celebration, and I didn't know it was like a hidden track or whatever. But I really dig that one. I mean, I obviously the calling is really dope. I liked Elf Farrell, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And then Primavera was another one that I really liked. But I think my all-time favorite was Day of Celebration.
Gotcha.
That's
What'd you
very
guess, Steven? That
helpful
was
to
your
me,
least favorite?
Beans.
What was my least favorite?
No, I'm guessing that was Steven. That was Slusher's least favorite.
Oh yeah, right.
We'll have to see. We'll have to see.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
Pressure's
I'm
on.
glad Beans put that out there for us because that helps me. I was almost like a 3-way tie, but I'm good to push
Nice.
Day of Celebration. But I think I like Yaleo. I think there's just something about it.
was good.
It gets me going. It gets me moving. My other one that's up there is Maria Maria, and like you can't not like love Smooth, but like between Maria Maria and Yaleo, I'm gonna go with Yaleo for right now.
Very cool.
I think it's that
Day of
yelly,
Celebration
that yelly
was
line.
in.
Yaleo, just freaking
Yeah.
Yeah. But Day of Celebration was in your
yeah.
like,
that was my
potential
tie.
favorites.
Yeah,
Nice.
I thought it was vibey. And I thought it was a cool way to
It
end
was
the
real vibey.
album to like
pretty glonky.
after. Yeah, like after the calling to go to that, I think it was neat, nifty. All right, Slush.
All right. Yeah. So none of y'all mentioned the ones that are that are tied for me. Well, one has been mentioned. Smooth is just such a banger.
Yeah.
And then Migda is my I for those two, like I always got excited when we got there. Smooth is just it's a banger, and then you get to like halfway through the album and it's I don't even know, man. I don't have words right now.
Migura was good. Yeah.
Just it's pumping. I love it. So all right, now for least faves. Steven. Also totally fine if you don't have any. But
Yeah, I don't feel confident in saying any other songs are my least favorite. There was one, but I forget the name of it, so I don't want to like say the wrong one. But yeah, there was. Yeah, I don't think I have a least favorite at this point.
all right. Dan.
Oh, I take that back.
Oh, never mind.
Wishing It Was. I didn't care for that one. Just the I didn't like whoever the vocalist was on that.
Eagle Eye Cherry.
Yeah, he didn't give me good vibes. So
He didn't bring the house down for you.
yeah, we'll put that one on the least favorite playlist.
Gotcha. I felt like it was kind of like I don't know if y'all are familiar with Gorillaz, but that felt like a
Dude, Gorillaz,
like a Gorillaz B-side almost.
they're so
Yeah.
strong and intimidating.
Yeah.
Every time, Steve, like I know Steven's making up crap, but every time I like go and believe like he's saying something I relate with, and then it's just a joke. And
They're so
This is a
strong
sneak
and
attack.
intimidating. What?
I want to hang on. I want to hang on with Steven and just say that I was in the same boat on Wishing It Was, but for a different reason. I think my thing was just all the other tracks. I have like a reason that they like stuck onto me, and I just couldn't get stuck on it. I think is the thing. I didn't mind
That
his
is my
vocals,
thought exactly.
So, but I just it didn't hang on me the same.
I'm with Jason, and I'm with
Same song?
Steven on that one. Yeah.
all right, wishing it was for all three.
It was
of y'all.
either that or like El Farol just didn't do it for me either. Not as much as Wishing It Was, but
That's some bullshit.
sorry, Steve.
That was one of the ones that I really liked. So
I know. I heard
I'm gonna
you say it, and I
transfer
felt
all my
bad
hatred
that it was
from Jarrett
Yeah.
to Daniel.
Good.
That's fair because none of your favorites were my least favorite this time. So
Dang.
I can
Nice.
say with confidence my least favorite. I actually because I like Gorillas and wishing it was feels like a gorilla song to me. Like that wasn't my least favorite. And even like my least favorite, like I do like the song, but it's like there's just something about the way we get to the middle of "Do you like the way?" and it loses me. Like I feel like Lauren's part, fantastic. Middle,
Yeah.
like I I just forgot how it goes now, and I went to a gorilla song. I went to I don't know if you ever played Gorilla's Jeep Simulator, but like that song, it's like "Bang, doom, da, bop." That's not how "Do You Like the Way" goes, but CeeLo's chorus there, like loses me because it just goes so long and it takes a while to get to his actual verse where he's saying actual words.
I mean, it's
And
just tough to drop that also in between Smooth and Maria Maria. That's just
yeah,
a tough spot.
Yeah.
yeah. So, but first half of the track, fantastic, and then once we get to the middle, it just loses me, and then I don't get excited again really until Migra. I do like Maria Maria, but it's just like I need that like those drums and like those gang vocals. It's just so great. So cool. All right, we made it. We're not
Cool
at war with
beans.
each other this time.
This time.
All right.
Not this time.
So speaking of continuing war, let's go to Album Ranker and see what happens now.
Yeah.
This is tough, guys. This is tough.
You may have won the battle, but I will win the next battle.
Oh no. Where's that from? That's from something.
The Office.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In my head, I kept wanting to say psych, and I was like, that's not right. It sounds like something that he would say, but
Oh yeah,
it's
that's
not
a
quite.
total Sean Spencer moment that would happen.
All right. I think I'm going to go first.
Okay, hit it.
I'm going to go ahead and drop it in my list at number 3, above Dangerous, behind Abbey Road. And if I just put this into the like little document thing wrong, can you fix what I just did, Dan?
Yeah.
I think I did it right, but I'm not sure.
You were right.
Okay, cool.
Well, hey, while you're at
So
it, you can go ahead and do the same thing
My list,
for me.
just so you can hear, is Sgt. Pepper's, Abby, Supernatural, Dangerous, The Wall, and then Baby One More Time.
So
Yeah, and then for me-
so you said Supernatural at 3 as well.
I'm putting this at 3. So I got same as Jason, Sergeant Pep, Abbey Road, Supernatch, Dangerous, and then of course I got Baby One More Time above the wall. But we've already gone through that.
I
think we need to go through it one more time.
We can revisit it.
I also put this at number 3. So that gives me Abbey Road at 1, The Wall, Supernatural, Sgt. Pepper's, Dangerous, and then ... Baby One More Time.
Steven, what you
Ellipses.
got?
I'm gonna put it. I think this may be like number 4, but it's above Britney and MJ.
So
I think that would be number
The
4
Wall,
for me.
Abbey Road, Dangerous, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Heart Clubs Band, and then ... Baby One More Time. You wanted above Dangerous?
Yeah.
So then all of us placed it at number 3,
Bet.
All right.
which solidifies its spot.
Bingo. All right, so here's our consensus list. Number 1, Abbey Road. Number 2, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Number 3, Supernatural. Number 4, The Wall. Thanks a lot, Jarrett. Number 5, Dangerous. And number 6, Ellipsis, ... Baby One More Time. How do y'all feel about that?
I'm okay with Supernatural being above the wall, personally.
That's okay.
That feels like a consensus of this group.
Feels like it. Well,
Wow.
I think
Crazy.
we can say you should definitely go check out our Spotify faves playlist. You find the link in the bio on our Instagram, which our Instagram handle is Jarrett.
The GOAT_pod.
Bingo. And our next episode will be all about which album, Dan?
It'll be about Brothers in Arms by Dire Straits.
And in case you're wondering, Steven, tell them what it is.
You're not going to get me this time because I actually have something. It is